Hello people, my name is Rage, and welcome one and all to my top 10 games of 2015. I absolutely love making these, and this year's is by far my favourite because 2015 has been phenomenal for gaming. I also think it's wonderful how these videos let us come together and discuss and celebrate our very best gaming experiences of the year. I absolutely adore reading your comments on this video because you guys have a lot of good stuff to say. You also have a lot of incredibly hurtful things to say when I mess up, but for the most part, you have a lot of good stuff to say. And I don't know, I'm really just pepped up on post-Christmas spirit. I hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas time. I really do. So, without further ado, let's get on to this. Of course, as usual, this is just my opinion, my top 10 favorite games, and any games that aren't on the list aren't necessarily here because I don't think they're good. For example, Undertale is fantastic, but I barely played it and therefore can't justify putting it on my list, so please also bear that in mind. Without further ado then, let's start with, shockingly, number 10. Okay, this game may be technically a little bit of a cheat, but I assure you before you go anywhere, it's the only one on the list, and it's technically a cheat because it's technically not released yet, but you know, technically speaking, we got to play it this year, and we played it in a big way. I cannot ignore a game that gave me 300 hours of pure, joyful gameplay. I really just cannot. This game, quite simply, Ark is the best survival open world sandboxy type experience I've ever played, and I do objectively think it is just the best survival game that is out there at the moment. I think it blows the competition out of the water, and there are a lot of reasons for this, but I think one of the big ones, and one of the ones that really struck home with me and the others that played it, is how actually scary the island is when you're just starting out. Sure, you get to endgame, you grind everything out, you have the island on lockdown, you're super powerful with your army of mega-tamed high-level dinosaurs, and the only thing that can really threaten you is a big PvP invasion from an equally powerful tribe. But the initial starting on this game, when it was just me and two others in our thatch huts trying to survive in the night against the thunderous roars of carnivorous dinosaurs that were killing us every half an hour as we desperately scavenged for basic rocks to just make an axe. This game really creates a desperate struggle in the new player. It invokes an intense survival experience that I just don't think other games have. In DayZ, in the H1Z1, zombies are just a nuisance. They don't really matter. They're just kind of, we have to kill a zombie. And it was incredibly refreshing to actually feel challenged and afraid of the environment, the island itself. It was an exhilarating experience, and it also felt incredibly rewarding. When we managed to get to about level 20 to 30, and we stepped back and we had like a 3x3 wood house near the spawning beach, we were bursting with pride. We'd managed to tame a raptor! These things that were mauling us to death repeatedly 10 levels ago, we actually tamed one. The moment we rode our first dinosaur and felt this whole new world of power and exploration ability unlock, it was exhilarating. And taming your first lame herbivore and knowing that you have this now tamed companion dinosaur is so awesome. And then the actual bond you form with your tamed creatures when someone kills them, you're like, oh no, you're infuriated, you want revenge, and it just stimulates so many awesome emotions that other games really just have failed to do. I mean, there's a reason we have hundreds and hundreds of hours in it. Now, I will say endgame is a problem because it stops being fun and starts being work. There's a lot of gated time-based progression that's really irritating, and everything that I just talked about for being fantastic kind of goes away once you start getting high level. So for that reason, it is number 10, but I can't deny, for the longest time, this game was phenomenal fun to play. Let's go on to number 9. Alright, so Until Dawn it is, and I know this game is cheesy, but then again it's designed to be cheesy, so can we really use that against it? And the best way I can justify this list item is that games inherently are designed to give you an experience, to leave an impact on you, to make you, well, remember them for a while after you've played them. And Until Dawn certainly did that. It was a very unique experience, and it was honestly a lot of fun. Seeing these ridiculously exaggerated characters bundle their way through this almost absurd situation and make stupid mistakes that may or may not get them killed depending on how good or how fast your reactions are, or indeed how evil you're thinking that day, is just, it's compelling, it is. And I mean, visually and audio-wise, the game is really, really well made. It's got a lot going for it in that department, and the actual, I guess I don't want to spoil, but main enemies of the game are very well done. They are quite unnerving, very unnatural, and honestly quite intimidating folks. Now, the story may have been predictable, it may have been obvious where it was going, but that's not the point. Cheesy horror movies are predictable. What's entertaining about them is how and what happens to the characters, and the simple fact that you can end the night with 0 to 8 people alive, well, that's very, very compelling, and honestly, that's a lot more variables and choice than even the Telltale games, and that's pretty damn good. And you know, the extra thing of having Danny over my shoulder while I played it, who knows what's going to happen, judging my every decision, well, that really bumped it up in my book and made it something that I'll remember for a while, and that's why it gets the number 9 spot for me. Let's go on to number 8. The Beginner's Guide. Talking of games that make an impact on you, what can I say about this? Honestly, not a lot, because I don't want to spoil or ruin it, because it's all about the journey and the payoff with this. It's a wonderfully made game, and it carries a wonderful message, and it's unique in the truest of senses. It is a wonderful piece of, honestly, art, and I would recommend anyone to sit down and take the hour and a half it takes to play through this, really listen to the dialogue, really understand the meanings and the messages. You might get a completely different interpretation to me. The discussions of what it all was about in the comments when I did a video on this were wonderful to read. Everyone had so many perspectives. It left everyone feeling speechless and dumbstruck as the game wore on and more revelations happened, and it's just so beautifully put together and well made and just compelling that I cannot not put it on this list. In terms of pure experiences that I will remember, this is probably top 3 material. It really is. Which, you know, you may think, why are you giving it number 8 then? Because, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it lasts an hour and a half. It's cool, you get a message, but then you're done. You know, there are a lot more in-depth games than that are going to be on this list. But for what it is, it's honestly beautiful. It really is. I heartily recommend The Beginner's Guide. Next up at number 7. Okay, I know, technically speaking, I said Ark would be the only kind of cheaty item on the list, but technically, okay, double technically, Ark is the cheaty early access, whereas Overwatch is that one amazing beta that I played this year that gets to be on the list, so technically they're different, but come on guys, if it's a game I first played in 2015, loved to absolute death, then I'm going to put it on the list, because at the end of the day, it's all about what I enjoyed playing and what I absolutely loved the experience of. And Overwatch, well, Overwatch is just, quite frankly, amazing. What little taste I got of playing this game, I absolutely loved to death, and I think there is so much future potential in this, and for the first time in a while, I see an actual potential esports future for a game that Blizzard have made, because obviously StarCraft 2, it's by no means dying, but it's not the shining esports star it used to be, and Hearthstone's a complete joke, let's be real here, esports-wise, the game itself's still fantastic fun, but I can really see pro Overwatch being fantastic to, well, watch over. Mainly because of the unique mechanic of tactically switching heroes while playing. I love that. And I think the main thing, apart from the super smooth, fun gameplay and incredible gunplay and lovely designed maps and full up and down movement, not just running across the ground, there's a lot of jumping around the place, running on roofs, a bit of parkour going on, depending on what you're playing. But it's the fact that every single character is just a joy. From their visual, stunning designs, unique personalities, they are just a roster of characters that you can really connect with, get involved with, and start to really have your favorites. Which, in an ironic way, makes it harder to play the game properly, because people don't like switching, they like playing their favorite character, so it kind of goes, like, they've designed their characters so well that it actually makes people not play one of the most unique mechanics in the game, which I do think is quite funny, but that will go away the more time people spend in the game. But the characters in Overwatch sell it so much. It's had barely anyone play it, and even before the limited beta, there were so many people cosplaying the characters, getting excited about them, talking about them. I just think Blizzard have done such a wonderful job with each and every one of them, and that is huge. A game like this lives or dies on how much everyone cares. I could name every single Dota hero off by heart because I love each and every one of them. I know their lore, I know their personalities in game, and they're fantastically designed, and that's one of the reasons I love the game so much. Whereas you look at other MOBAs or other similar games and you're just like, I don't really care about any of these people I'm playing as. I really don't. It's the same way with TF2. Everyone loves the TF2 classes. Everyone loves the quirkiness of the scout, the sheer, really heavy of the heavy, and the psychoticness of the medic. And that's one of the reasons TF2 does so well and why it's a fantastic game. People love the classes, and Overwatch has really captured that. And then you take those amazing characters and, as I said, put them in a fantastic environment with really compelling action-packed game modes and incredible gameplay with fun abilities, and you just have a recipe for a really incredible, well-packaged game, and I think it's going to do really well. I see a bright future for Overwatch, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens once it goes into more open beta and then release. I think there's going to be some good stuff coming out of that game. I really, really do. And I also have this lovely canon theory in my head that Overwatch isn't actually a separate Blizzard universe. Overwatch is Blizzard's main universe, right? In the future, and within Overwatch's universe, WoW, StarCraft, Hearthstone, basically every other one of Blizzard's games exists within the Overwatch world as a game that people play, which is supported by seeing Murlocs in maps, security guards playing Hearthstone, and that Overwatch is the future of our world with Blizzard games in, and they play them as they're doing their own. If you see what I mean, it's very hard. Imagine, right? Take Earth, alright, we have the games that we have, i.e. the Blizzard games, and then 100 years in the future, we have people with these powers, Overwatch, fighting each other, and then once they finish their day's heroics, they go home and load up WoW. That's kind of how I'm imagining it. I don't know why I felt the need to explain that to you. I tried to explain that to Hollow, and he just told me I'm being retarded, so maybe I am, but it's kind of just what I've decided, which amuses me. But either way, I guess I've probably explained my point here, so yeah. Let's move on to number 6. Rainbow Six Siege. Yes, this game is as surprising to probably a lot of you guys that it's here as it is to me. When I first saw this game announced, I was like, eh. When I first saw this game in more detail, I was like, eh. But then I played this game for the first time, and I was like, holy hell, this is fantastic. I genuinely believe that this is the best shooter ever released since Counter-Strike. It is compelling in a way that nothing else in its genre really is for me. The heart-pounding thrill of being in a siege breaching scenario on both the attacking perspective and the defender's perspective is kind of amazing. Being in the room, looking around, trying to communicate with your team, find out where the enemy are, you're crouched behind a deployable shield, watching the hostage, the walls are seemingly reinforced, the windows are not broken, but you know you're not safe, and then suddenly you hear the flash of a fuse next to you. You have to dive over the shield and get away as the wall you were previously pressed up against blows to bits, shattering smoke and debris into the room, and then bullets start raining as you desperately sprint to the corner and try and reach cover. You take a little bit of damage, but manage to get there as you slowly peek off and maybe fire at a few attackers that were having a look, and then maybe one of your teammates gets killed on your right. You're like, holy crap, where did that get shot from? And you realize the windows are being busted in and bullets are raining down, and it's just ridiculously awesome. It really, really is. However, as I said in my video, though I have to give massive credit to them, they have fixed a lot of issues with their first released major patch, and they did it 2 weeks after release. It was massive patch notes, and it sorted out so many issues with the game, but initially, the servers were so horrible that you would get killed about 5 seconds after you'd got behind cover by someone who saw you. That's how bad they were. But fortunately, that's mostly resolved now. If it had been completely buttery smooth servers from release, this would probably be a lot higher on the list. I cannot tell you the sheer joy, thrill, tactical depth, and satisfying gunplay Siege brings to you. The different, quite literally, layers of strategy as you rappel up buildings and decide your way of attack with your teammates. It's second to none. It really is. It's such a wonderful tactical shooter, and I would recommend any of you to check it out. Ideally, with 4 friends that you don't mind getting angry at. Alright, let's go on to number 5. Oh yes, it's Rocket League. What can I say? When evaluating games for the list, one of the top priorities always is, how much fun does this game give me? And with Rocket League, the answer is all of it. Quite literally, all of the fun. This game is hilarious. It is one of the most enjoyable experiences you can have with friends. Group of you in a 3v3, just having at it with the ball is just... That's a weird sentence out of context, actually, now that I think about it, but it's just so enjoyable, and it's not just enjoyable for the addictive gameplay, responsive controls, and incredibly satisfying goals that you can pull off, and the actual ridiculously high skill ceiling that makes you feel like a badass when you master flying. That's all amazing, but what's really good is this game just makes you kind of break down a little. The amount of stupid conversations and things that have happened while the group of us have been playing Rocket League is ridiculous. I don't think I've ever played a game that while playing I've been consistently laughing with everyone I've been playing with it as much as Rocket League. There's just something about it that simply screams pure joy, and while occasionally it's anger-inducing beyond imagining if you're trying to do ranked and taking it seriously, just playing casually with a group of you is quite honestly one of the most fun experiences in all of gaming for me. It really is, especially with all the updates and now the mutators and even the cool hockey puck mode that they've done. It's just wonderful. The game is an absolute treat and incredibly satisfying, and if you've not played it yet, why the hell not? Next up then, at number 4, we have Bloodborne. This probably is no surprise. You knew this was going to be somewhere, and it indeed takes the number 4 spot. From start to finish, this game was simply incredible. From the detail in the world, to the fast-paced and refreshed combat, to the variety and complexity of the enemies that you face, to the wonderful sound design. It was just a menagerie of magnificence. It really was. This is the game that made me cave and finally buy a PS4, and I have not regretted it one bit since. It just did so much well, and honestly, I can't even really think of anything it did badly. It improved in a way that isn't directly an improvement. I mean, you could argue it's a side grade to the basic Souls formula, that it just felt so much better to me to play. I love the more fast-paced, aggressive hunter style that also ties into the world lore and completely makes sense. I love that, actually. Just thinking about that, the fact that they went for this fast-paced, a lot higher action, quick combat compared to the previous Souls' slow-paced, deliberate, timing-based combat is one thing, and it worked, and it was fun. But the fact that that makes complete sense because, you know, it's about beasts and the aggressiveness of them and the hunt is just a great example of how everything in this game ties in with everything else. The boss design was once again exemplary and a massive step up from Dark Souls 2 and its 15 giant humanoid bosses that you had to face. It was challenging in just the right ways, to the point of just about to be frustrating, but then you'd crack it and it was incredibly satisfying. The weapon designs were a lot of fun to use. Uncovering the twists and turns as you go through the story and defeat the bosses was brilliant. The shifts in the moon that brought about real changes within the world as you battled your way through, well, honestly, the horrors of Yharnam is just... it's just one of a kind. I had a great experience in Bloodborne, and it's by far and away my favourite Souls experience, and I really hope there ends up being more. I really do. In fact, it's been a while. I'm probably due for another playthrough of this game, thinking about it, so yeah, I'm gonna hurry up and finish this list! Yes, so Bloodborne takes the 4th spot. Over to number 3. The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth expansion / DLC. Now, firstly, a lot of you are going to be like, there it is. A lot of you are going to be like, at 3? What's 2 and 1? And then a lot of you are going to be like, well, it's an expansion / DLC, so does it really count? And to all you, I say, shut up, okay? Listen. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. Don't go, I'm sorry. This game is just so brilliantly addictive that I can't ignore it on a list like this. And while, yes, it's technically not a new release, and it's an expansion on an old one, I don't think that excludes it from consideration, just like a new WoW expansion wouldn't be excluded from that year's top list, because it is such a big addition to the game. It has nearly doubled the amount of content available and added so many things that players have been wanting since the launch of Rebirth. The amount of new items and synergies is just wondrously fun, and every single run, more than ever, has something truly unique going for it. It tells its own truly unique story, and it's just a pleasure to play through. It's just... I mean, as I said, it's just brilliantly addictive, and I just can't stop playing this game. Every time I think about going to play Isaac, I have this little sort of just, like, shake of excitement go up me, like, as I think about the possibilities. What items am I gonna get? What incredible display of tier powers? Or what lame display of tier powers as I slowly complain about Lazarus sucking and die in a corner horribly. It just is exciting, the mystery of each single run. The addition of a whole new mode in Greed Mode brought very much needed fresh life into the game, with a new dynamic, flipping certain items from being great to kind of average and making you think in a whole new strategic way, and that's wonderful. A new set of devilishly difficult challenges for people who want that. A new daily system with a scoreboard to compete with people all over your world. Yes, your particular world, but not mine, with your Isaac skills. There's just so much going in Afterbirth that has expanded upon an already incredibly appealing game that it just deserves to be here. It's wondrous fun, and I can see myself putting hundreds more hours into it for a long time, because there is just so much there. I mean, I've spent maybe 70 hours in Afterbirth, and I've not even completed half of the new achievements. That in itself is a testimony. It doesn't even feel like I've put that much time into it. I just cannot stress enough how much simple fun and excitement this game offers. It really is kind of unparalleled. I mean, in sheer value for money, hours to the price is unbelievable. That alone is pretty damn impressive. But yeah, the game is wonderful. Everything about it is great. The design of the new enemies, the new bosses, the new characters. In fact, the new character, which was devilishly difficult to both unlock and play, is fantastic. And yeah, I could sing praises for this all day. I could wax lyrical as much as I want to, but at the end of the day, all I can say is this game is ruthlessly addicting, ridiculously fun, and aggravatingly brilliant, and I simply cannot put it down. So Afterbirth takes the third slot on this list. Coming in at 2 then is Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. I absolutely, unbelievably, unequivocally love the Monster Hunter series. It is one of the most satisfying experiences in gaming that you can have, in my opinion. Everything about it is quite simply incredible. And the newest one, released this year for DS, was no different. There's just something about Monster Hunter, and if I had to describe it in one word to anyone, it would always be satisfying, because that's what it simply is, and that is a fantastic thing for a game to be. The sheer drive that this game instills into you to get better at hunting is unparalleled. And what I love is that while, yes, you farm better and better equipment, at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter much to your progression. Your progression in this game is you as a person becoming a more skilled hunter. Because a new player wearing literally the best equipment in the game will still get his ass handed to him by one of the basic enemies. And that is something that I love. This game drives you to go for it, to be the very best, like no hunter ever was. And that is just awesome. Just awesome to me. And while a lot of people say the game is a grind or repetitive, I mean, I can't disagree. You do end up grinding for a lot of things, but it's a very acceptable grind. It's a very well done and well made grind that makes a lot of sense and really compels you to go for it. It doesn't feel like work that grinding does in a lot of other games. It feels like you are truly earning something, like beating a monster over and over and over to get its parts to make the armor. You don't feel like you're farming that monster. You feel like you are mastering that monster, and there is a massive difference there, and it feels good when you are taking apart almost effortlessly this incredibly designed, living, breathing, believable, monstrous creation without even batting an eyelid when 10 hunts ago it was making you its bitch. There is no greater feeling in gaming for me. It's just compelling in the greatest of senses. Every single enemy is so incredibly well made in Monster Hunter, it's unreal. And while there are these giant wyverns and massive behemoths of creatures that seem fantastical and unreal, every single thing they can do, every attack, every move is explained. For example, if I told you there is a monster that can cause explosions in the air around it to blow you away with massive damage, you're like, that sounds a bit far-fetched. But then I'm like, well, the monster in question, much like a snake produces venom, produces this particle, almost like a flammable gas within its body, and it can release it through a bit of skin near its fur on its mane, and then once it's released, it flaps its wings really hard, spreading it into the air around him, then rapidly clashes its jaw together so that its two long teeth collide with each other, causing a spark, which then sets off this flammable substance in the air, causing the explosions around it. And while, yes, you know, monster producing flammable gas, there's nothing in nature that does that, at least I hope not, it still makes a lot more sense than monster is magic, and I like the biologically, let's say, believable approach to all of the monster designs that are going on, or at least 90% of them. Some of them are kind of ridiculous, but at the very least, I think it's very cool that they've done that, and yeah, there's not really much to say. I think Monster Hunter is great for many of the same reasons the Soul games are great. They are very difficult and very rewarding, and make you feel like a badass, and are definitely not for people who want easy rewards fast, and I can definitely appreciate that in the game. So while I could go on and on and on and on and on about Monster Hunter, and I really could, I'm simply gonna leave it at that. It's just a thrilling experience beating down this Goliath of an enemy as just you, your hunter, and your skills. It's just simply amazing. Let's move on then to my top game of 2015, and indeed a new joint first on my best games of all time. You can probably predict what it is. You probably already have. Let's go. We have, of course, Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt as my number one spot. Now, I have been using a lot of adjectives to describe the games on this list. A lot of positive ones, a lot of glowing praise. Quite frankly, you could say maybe I'm exaggerating a little, and while I'm totally not, they are really that good. There is one word I have been saving specifically for this. Here's where it gets awkward. It turns out I accidentally used it earlier, but didn't realize it, but don't judge me. But the word that I have been saving for Witcher 3 is quite simply, it is a masterpiece. It is one of the best experiences I have ever had, and I implore all of you that are even remotely interested in RPGs to give it a shot. So why is this game so great? Well, first and foremost, the combat is really a lot of fun and quite good. We're going to start off with the least good, if that makes sense, because the combat, I would say, is probably its weakest aspect, but it's only weakest in the sense that maybe you could say the sponge is your least favorite part of a delicious cake. It's still a delicious part of a cake. It's fast-paced, it's skillful, it's rewarding. It may get a little bit repetitive when you get a little bit too strong, even on hard difficulties, but certainly initially it's a lot of fun to use. The various spells and alchemy options available to you are diverse and useful. You get turned into a crazed gardener as you go ripping up everybody's plants to supply your, just insane potion needs. You have a lot of different customization options for your characters, the talents you can choose, what you want to focus on. There is quite a lot of depth there. Granted, the difficulty options only increasing the health and damage of enemies for the most part is a little bit disappointing and a lazy way to do it, but it does get away with it a little bit because it kind of forces you to use the preparation of making the right potions, having them on, putting the right oil on your blade, really getting in the mentality that you are going to go fight for your life and you need to be prepared for that fact. So, that aside then, the actual world itself is, well, it's breathtaking in scale, in detail, in how alive it feels, in how full of just... it's just... I can't actually properly put into words. All I can say is it's the most realistic rendition of a fantasy setting world I've ever seen. Everything feels in place. There's no empty areas. There's no contrived locations or set pieces. It's a very naturally flowing, busy world with a lot in it. And the best example I can give of that, apart from the lovely rocky snowy hills of Skellige or the lovely open plains of south of Novigrad, Velen, that's the one. I want to talk about Novigrad itself, the big city. Now, tell me what you think about when you think of a big city in an RPG, the capital city of the game, let's say. While it might be big, while it might be impressive, it's really got, about 30 buildings in it, generously, on the most part, from what I've found and from what I've played. And that's still that's like a small town in most places. I mean, not even that. And you know what I'm saying? That's supposed to be the capital city, and there's supposed to be thousands of people living here. Okay, game. Whereas with Witcher and Novigrad, it actually feels like a massive city, like you are lost in its maze of streets and houses, and you could honestly conceivably see how thousands of people are living here. The city streets are packed with people going about their businesses. There are hundreds and hundreds of buildings, beautifully arranged and detailed. The layout of the city is both like a maze, but it's also incredibly fun to explore as you go down the alleys and get lost and just experience the architecture and the different dynamics between different sectors of the city and all the various characters that are at play and maybe warring at each other with the gangs and all of that dynamic action that you see within is just unprecedented, honestly, in my opinion. It is the single best rendition of a city in an RPG, I think, ever. But even all of this, even this incredible environment quality and fun you get from sheer exploration, there is a reason why this game is unbelievable, and that is the storyline. And I don't mean the main storyline, which is incredible, don't get me wrong. It's satisfying, it's wonderful, it's thrilling, it's surprising, it's great. But that's not why the storyline is great. And this next sentence is going to sound like a massive exaggeration, but really, I can assure you it is not. 90% of the side quests in Witcher 3 have a more compelling and better told and interesting story than most of every other single RPG's main storyline. And I mean that wholeheartedly. There is no such thing as go kill 5 wolves or go clear that cave and come back and get your reward in Witcher 3. For example, and this is a very simple example, you get a quest early on to go hunt a werewolf from this woman. And you're like, simple, I'm a witcher, I kill werewolves, it's what I do, where is it? I'll go murder it. So you head up into the woods and you use your detective-like witcher senses, which by the way is a beautiful mechanic and really feels like you are properly, well, basically Sherlocking it up, and that's incredibly satisfying. So you go into the woods, you look for signs of the werewolf, you find tracks, you find torn clothes, you find a dead dog that it's had a little bit of a go at, and then you maybe find this body of another woman. You're like, oh, the werewolf has killed, that's not good. But then as you find this body, the woman that gave you the quest has been following you, and she's like, don't worry about the body, that's nothing, that's absolutely nothing. And at this point you're like, this is suspicious, so you start questioning her, and then she reveals that this woman is her sister, and you're like, so the sister's got your werewolf, that sucks for you, I'm sorry to hear that. And then she's like, yeah, no, that sucks, woo. And you're like, hang on, she's not really grieving as she should be here, but you kind of pass over it because your job here is to hunt a werewolf. This is getting complex. You track down the werewolf in its cave, you beat it down, you weaken it, and just before you can finish it off, it turns back into a man. And he's like, no, please stop, I hate being a werewolf, I don't want to kill people, it sucks, please, just try and cure me, do anything for me. And you're like, oh god damn it, now I've got to have a conscience, and oh my god. So you kind of leave and you think about it, you go talk to the initial woman who, you know, feeling a little bit guilty, reveals that this man that's a werewolf is her husband and that she knew he was a werewolf. And the woman that they killed, her sister, she deliberately lured her sister to the woods to get killed by her husband, the werewolf, because her husband and her sister were having an affair. And you're like, well, shit, that's pretty crappy of them, but listen, lady, you can't just lure your sister out to get killed by your husband, that's pretty messed up. So with this knowledge in hand, you go back to the werewolf, who's like, I'm healed again, because, you know, I'm a werewolf, I heal fast. You beat him down a second time, he turns back into a human, and at this point, his wife arrives at the cave, and you're like, oh, for God's sake, I just want to get my money for killing this werewolf. And then the wife's like, husband, please, I only did it because I love you. And the husband's like, you are sick, you made me kill the other person, as that was a great way of explaining that. You made me kill my new love. And then they have an argument with each other, and at this point you're like, I could kill the werewolf, finish it off, end it all. I could let the werewolf have its revenge and kill her and then kill the werewolf, or I could just walk away, leaving it to have its revenge, abandon this whole thing and not give a damn, this isn't worth my time. And I told that pretty poorly, and I misremembered a few things and left a few twists and turns out. But just that basic process, that what starts as a simple request develops into this twisty-turny quest with things you never expected to see happen, there is no and then in Witcher 3. You do something, and then you do something, and then you do something, and then you complete a quest. That is normal RPGs. In Witcher, you go do something, but then you do something. However, then you do something, but then you do, and you see what I mean? It builds that layer and that complexity of the storylines, and that's just basic side quests. The best example I can give you is an early on major storyline mission that branches off to be its own side quest for a Baron, and I'm not going to go into detail, I'm not going to spoil it, but let's just say that single storyline related to this Baron, how you initially just think he's an abusive asshole, and at the end of it are left feeling torn and heartbroken for this almost just wretched man that you can't help but feel sorry for, is unbelievable how it takes you on that journey. It is so compelling. It really is. And again, I could keep going on and on about The Witcher. I really could, but there is a reason it is now in my joint favourite game of all time. It is a wonderful experience, a wonderful RPG, and I'll say it again, a actual masterpiece. And there's a reason it's won so many Game of the Years. There really is. It's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. I could keep praising it for another 4 minutes, but I think you've heard enough of this stage. And there's going to be loads of things I forget to talk about that I loved about the game. There really is. But alas, alack, I only have so much time. So yeah, there we go, guys. That's my top 10 games of 2015. What did you think? Do you agree with my list? Its order? What would your list be? Let's have a lovely discussion. And I hope you guys are gearing up to have a wonderful new year. My name's been Rage. Remember to like if you've enjoyed this and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. You've been watching